being an Indian, female Indian, and living in Australia, that in my wildest dream, I never thought that one day I'll be making wines and growing grapes. It gives me so much pleasure, and I think have found what I really love to do. Very few people in their lives find they love what they want to do, but I think I was very fortunate and good karma. This is what I love. How I kind of stumbled onto this is very thankful to God. When I started my first vintage, I got this adrenaline rush in me and never wanted this vintage to end. And that's when I found that, oh, this is what I love to do. And I've never looked back.
We were lucky to have grown up on the Mornington Peninsula, and we've been on the peninsula for 35, maybe over 35 years. So Dad's always been involved in hospitality, and in the early 90s, the wine industry was burgeoning on the peninsula as well. And Mum and Dad have always had that. They've been drawn to do farming in some way, shape, or form because back in India, our great grandparents have always been involved in agriculture. And that draw of the land was always there. It was just a happy coincidence that we happened to be on the peninsula. The wine industry was starting, and we thought, this would be a great opportunity to do something a little bit different.
Initially, when we bought the farm, it was farmed in a conventional way, and then I changed to organic. And then in 2004, I stumbled across biodynamics. That kind of opened my imagination and my mind, and how my grandparents used to do farming back home. They made their own compost, they never used any herbicide, they made their own teas and different things to control the funguses, or the insects made their own with the leaves, made the different teas. And that's how I started incorporating that into my practices and have never looked back. Not just my wines what I make have changed, or the plant health has changed. Even the fruit trees that I have on the property, the fruit coming from those trees have got longer shelf life and so much more intensity of flavor. So much of eco life on the farm, all the different birds, the different insect life, and all the frogs that we hear, and all year round the different kinds of birds come, which is just amazing. It's given me so much pleasure. And the soil, the change in the soil. We've seen that how the soil was so much compacted before, and now by doing these practices, the soil has got structure, it's more frail. And this is one of the farms which is not irrigated at all. It's a dry farming. So for me, to look after the soil is the utmost importance. And I think that's where the name Avani comes from. Avani in Sanskrit means Mother Earth, and it's all about looking after our Mother Earth. It's so forgiving that we are amazed how quickly the farm has changed. The soil changed first, and then the plant health, and then the fruit that are produced, and that's seen in the vines. All the plants have never been irrigated, so we don't have any kind of irrigation system. So we very much rely on rain, and if you have good soils, if there is structure, and we are very lucky on Mornington Peninsula to have clay as our base subsoil and basalt as our mother parent rock. So it holds the moisture. If you get enough rainfall, it holds the moisture. And my aim is to preserve that moisture. So I kind of think how I'm going to preserve. And so I use mulching under the vines or in between the vines to preserve that moisture. So I think your total kind of thinking of how you're going to farm changes. We bought the vineyard in 1998. It was an established vineyard, planted to Pinot Chardonnay, Cabernet, few rows of Shiraz, a bit of Merlot. After making the vines for a few years and farming the conventional what it was done, we realized that Shiraz was the variety for this particular site. So we started making the change in 2007. So whole of the vineyard is all dedicated to Shiraz now. We are still in the process of planting and replanting a lot of vines because we grafted certain sections of the vineyard and replanted some. A lot of grafts didn't work, so it's a work in progress. The farming side, I kind of changed in 98 when we bought conventional farming, then changed to organic. The progress in the vineyard was kind of stagnant after a while, so that's where when I stumbled across the biodynamics and started doing the biodynamic practices, the things changed and much more insect life, much more the plant health kind of improved, and so did the quality of the fruit that we grow.
When we originally purchased the property, we really didn't have a background in viticulture or winemaking. We got into this pretty fresh, and I think at that time in our family's life, I was probably in senior school, and I think my sister was starting as well in senior school. So Dad told Mum that there's a bit of capacity here. So Mum went and studied at Charles Sturt University. She did a double degree in wine science and viticulture, and whilst studying, she also was working for probably a quarter of the year with Philip Jones from Bass Phillip Wines, an apprentice winemaker, and she did that for 8 years. So while managing this property, studying and doing, getting that experience in wine, I think Mum has really learnt a lot and brought a lot of that, back to our family's business. During those initial, I'd say 8 to 10 years, we were growing the grape and we were getting our wine contract made under a different brand. But then since I think 2009 was the first year where we actually made wine on this property. So we established the winery here in this building, and have been making the wine, bottling the wine. Everything happens on this particular site, and storage as well. So the storage is just in our cellar over there. So it's been quite an evolution over the last 20 years, but it's been a great experience.
I was very lucky to get this opportunity to work at Bass Phillip with Philip Jones, and those were the kind of wines when I was a clean slate. So when I drank those wines, I said, wow, this is something that I like, and I would love to, something like that. But I didn't knew, being like have not worked in any of the other part of the world, how to approach that. So I kind of started doing this in a way that, do a good farming practices. That was initially very much for a health reason. When I started this, we were living on the property, drinking the water from our tanks. I had 2 young kids. But what I learned during this process was, wow, it makes a difference in the product that you grow when you grow it in a natural way. And that was very much showed in the wine that I made. And I was, I think, very fortunate when I took it to the restaurants, or some of the wine writers or buyers came, or they said, this is something different and we really like it. So I thought, gave a pat on my back and said, wow, I'm in the right direction. I should keep doing what I'm doing. And I think I didn't look for very much for the business side of it as much. I kind of was more passionate, and whether it made money or doesn't make money, I just wanted to do only this way. And I think that's where Devendra comes in when it comes to the business side of the things.
From a business perspective, the way that we were really able to focus ourselves and provide a point of difference in the market came when we converted our vineyard to 100% Syrah or Shiraz grapes. Because and as Mum alluded to previously, we found that the best expression, or the best varietal expression from this site was Syrah. And not many people on the Mornington Peninsula are able to grow super cool climate Syrah. It was a point where, Mum's winemaking technique and working with Philip, he was a great Pinot Noir maker. Those learnings resonated very well when you're trying to make cool climate Syrah. So in the market, we're one of the few or first winemakers to make the style of wine on the Mornington Peninsula, which created that point of difference. So from 2009 through to, I think, about 2015, we were only a Syrah winemaker. So over those initial years, we weren't making other varieties. Over time, or probably in the last 3 to 4 years, we found that, we wanted to expand our production and also be able to make some classic Mornington Peninsula varieties as well. So we've grown the practice in the last 3 to 4 years, where we're now making Pinot Noir, Chardonnay, Pinot Gris, and a skin contact Pinot Gris from grapes that we bring in from another couple of sites in Shoreham and Main Ridge, which are at slightly higher elevations than we are here in Red Hill South. So for us, it's important to find the coolest sites on the Mornington Peninsula to source our grapes. So this is the coolest site for Syrah, and those are really great sites for your Pinot Noir and your Chardonnay. And the reason it's important to actually find a cool site is that it allows the greatest amount of hang time of the grapes on the vine. So that's important because you want to maximize the flavor development within the grapes. So what we found is that, by doing biodynamic agriculture, we are able to get earlier physiological ripening on this particular site, and we have a long hang time, which enables us to make, enables us to grow fruit that has great intensity of flavor and great quality. In terms of total production, we produce about 1,500 cases a year across all the different varieties, which makes us, we're probably one of the most boutique vineyards or wineries in the region. But we're quite focused in what we're doing. So everything that is done on this property, all the wine that is made on this property is made in this winery. From production through to bottling, through to storage.
Havani Vineyard, we got just under 10 acres of wines, and they are very close planted, so the distance between two wines is about 0.7 of a meter, and we've got approximately 12,000 wines planted, which is comparable to some of this Grand Cru vineyards in France. And our production per wine is about 300 grams of grapes, which you need probably 12 wines to get a bottle of wine. Very, very small quantity, low production. So you get 3 or 4 bunches per wine here. Comparatively, if you go to the hotter parts of Victoria, they would have 5 kilos per wine.
Winemaking is very natural, hands-off approach as well. I use natural acidity. There's no fining filtration or any enzyme added to the wines. So most of the work is done in the vineyard, and the biggest decision that I make is when to pick the grapes. So I want to preserve the natural acidity of the wine, and I think that's important. Those cooler sites are important for me because you don't lose your acids for a long period of time. My winemaking philosophy is to make a wine which clearly speaks of the site. And I think that's why I have a hands-off approach in the winemaking, and that's where my biodynamic farming comes as well, because that's the only way you can show through your fruit and not do anything, let the place speaks for itself.
Our wines have been very well received by a lot of the key sommeliers in Melbourne and Sydney. We're very happy to have our wines stocked at a number of great restaurant groups like Vue de Monde, just even locally in the region, Point Leo Estate, Jackalope, 10 Minutes by Tractor have been great supporters of us. And I think our wine really resonates with people that are looking for something that is a little bit different. Now, because our wines are minimal intervention, meaning they're unfined, unfiltered, a little bit wild, they really resonate with, I think, some of the younger crowd as well. So we're talking it's very popular in the inner north of Melbourne, as well as people that really know their wines too. So they understand everything that goes into the background of making the wines, and I believe they're enjoying our products at the minute. We've only just recently started to look at some export markets. We've been exporting in small batches to the UK, to Hong Kong, to Shanghai, and to Osaka in Japan. So we found that some of the Asian markets, especially the natural winemaking and the biodynamic agriculture, is something of quite a focus to them. So they appreciate wines that are made and grown in that way.
My wines are very structured, they are balanced, and they've got intensity. And I think that makes me happy because that's sort of wine I would love to drink.
Well, you'd want wine to be interesting and different. And that's one of the things that we have is each wine has its own character, and that character comes from, as Mum said, each of the sites. So because you allow each vineyard to sing in its own way, that's represented in the glass. And that's that difference that we're hoping people are able to appreciate. So we have 2 labels. We have Avani, which is all the grapes that are grown on this particular site here in Red Hill South, which is all Syrah, and we also have Amrit, which is the grapes that we bring in from a couple of cool climate sites in Main Ridge and Shoreham. In terms of agriculture, there is a little bit of difference because we are biodynamic here and those vineyards aren't biodynamic. But from a winemaking perspective, everything is consistent. We employ minimal intervention winemaking across the board, and all the wine is made on our winery here in Red Hill South. For our business, and being a small business, one of the key strengths for us has been our ability to be hands-on in every aspect of what we do. From the agriculture, we have an intimate knowledge and understanding of what takes place in the vineyard, through the winemaking, through the bottling, and into the sales. So we understand this business intimately, and we actually are really passionate and focused about each element of what we're doing. That is something that is usually achievable at a small scale. The real challenge is when you're trying to grow a business of this size, especially being a family business. One of the key challenges for us in the last little while has been, how do we grow this business? Because currently you've got 3 family members involved, but an operation of this size and the way that we want to grow, it involves collaborating with a lot of other people, and finding like-minded people who are as passionate as us and who have the same focus as us has been a challenge. From a promotions perspective, we've actually been pretty quiet lately, and we're looking to ramp that up a little bit. The majority of our wine has been sold through restaurants, bottle shops in Sydney, Melbourne, Perth, and now a little bit in terms of export as well. But we're actually growing our cellar door here. So at the start of this year, we've created a special space for wine tasting, and we'll be opening the cellar door on the first weekend of every month, inviting the general public to come in and taste our wines. And going forward into October and into January, we'll be looking to do various events at the winery as well. So we'll be doing food and wine pop-ups, pairing with or partnering rather with other like-minded restaurants who also share that passion for sustainable agriculture and sustainable food. So our vision for this business in 10 years' time is to continue to grow our production. We've grown production by about 50% over the last 3 years, and we want to keep on that trajectory because we're focused on continuing to grow our footprint in the Sydney market, as an example, and continuing to grow in Southeast Asia. So Japan, Singapore, Hong Kong are seen as key markets for us. Through that process, we want to maintain quality. Quality is really important for us, so we're not going to compromise on quality, but we want to continue to develop our foothold in the market. It's really important that this business stays a family business, and it's up to myself and my sister to really help grow the business in the next 10 years and be more involved. That process has started with me, and I've taken part in the last 2 vintages, being as an assistant winemaker in the practice, and I intend to continue my education on the wine side and get really involved in a hands-on way in all aspects of what we're doing here at Avani. I think the unique selling point for us is that our Avani wines are farmed biodynamically and organically, and the winemaking practices enhance that through minimal intervention. We're about minimum additions, minimum extractions, and the wines have great texture and complexity and are very food friendly.
Cheers.
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 To Avani.
To Avani.
And the future.